Hey teammates, welcome back to Teaching with Tania. In this video, I'm talking about how I think through lesson planning and actually plan a lesson for you guys that I'm going to teach later on in my next video. So I know a lot of you guys are education majors or you are about to graduate in things like that. So in this video, I want to let you guys know how I lesson plan. I did a week of lesson planning, but then I realized I didn't do a day. And of course, you have to know and master how to write one lesson as opposed to a week's worth of lesson. And so actually one of my friends from college recommended this video, so shout out to you. So if you're wondering why I'm sitting in the dark, I absolutely love sitting in the dark. My students will tell you that I feel like it calms us down. It's really mellow when the lights are off and I just feel more calm and it's like less stressful. And I hear the lights give off energy, and I truly believe that when the lights are on, my students are amped up. When I just turn the lights off, it's like zen. But starting off, when I am lesson planning, I love to go ahead and look at the standards first and work backwards that way. And I know in college we had to do like 10-page lesson plans, and I still like outline what I like to do, especially when I have time to plan during my planning period. Some days you get that, some days you don't get that. If you haven't seen a teacher planning video, go ahead and check this video out because I give a realistic week in my life on how teacher planning actually goes. But yeah, on Wednesdays I like to lesson plan, but I had a busy weekend and last week was crazy. We are nearing the end of the school year, so you guys can just imagine. But I'm still trying to get my lessons in, especially because this is a really fun unit and my students have been grasping what it means to be in a new home, especially like with immigrants and talking about their own life experiences. I've realized that if you let up with lesson planning and your structure, then your students will let up as well. So we're continuing to teach just like a normal day as we approach the end of the school year. So it is important that my lesson plans are still intact, even though as a teacher, it can be really tempting to say whatever, it doesn't matter. But I've realized that I only have a certain amount of days with my students, and some of them aren't even looking like fourth graders, like they grow like crazy. And that's a side point. They're about to go to fourth grade. I just want to make sure they have all the skills necessary to be successful in that grade. So as of right now, that starts with lesson planning. And going back to how I like to start lesson planning is looking at the goals and the objectives for that lesson. So we actually just read this book today. This book was actually so cute. I don't know if you like to read to your students or you like to play a video. Like I do a mixture of both, or even have them read sometimes. And my lead gave me a great idea to have, while I was reading, my first block would follow along. And then if I got to a word that I knew they knew how to read, I would go ahead and have them fill in the blank. And then for my higher class, they were just flying through it, just reading together as a class and just pointing out each other's experiences. It was just a really good book, and I didn't think I would like this book or reading it with them, but they got into it. I have realized as well that if I am into a book and I just get really excited about it and use funny voices or talk really fast at one point or talk like really slow at one point, they get really into it. And so this was a good book that we read today. And then tomorrow we're going to continue reading the book, but I want to talk specifically about the characters. And so I have my curriculum here that my district uses. If you haven't checked out how I implement my curriculum and ways to implement curriculum, then go ahead and check out my previous video about curriculum and how I find resources to aid or supplement for the curriculum, things like that. So my learning goal is for the students to be able to explain how the characters and the author's point of view contribute to the central message of the story, basically talking about how they've changed and finding evidence, text-based evidence questions to find ways to figure out how over time immigrants have challenges and how sometimes those challenges are frustrating to them. And it's hard because even though you are in a new country, you still want to keep the cultural and traditions of your family, which is beautifully like laid out in this book. So starting off, like I said before, but in another video, my curriculum always starts with a welcome. So I like to use the welcome to think back and to activate their prior knowledge. For example, for some students that were absent, how was this book? Or ask some questions about the book or some characters they may remember. And we also did notice and wonder about this chart. So basically having a deep dive into what the book was about, because really we only got to read it today and to talk about a few things, but focusing on the characters tomorrow is one of the learning goals. So once I welcome my students in, have them settle into the space, and we get started with Wit and Wisdom, I like to go ahead and do the welcome because it draws them in and makes them excited about what we're going to do today. Because I've noticed that if I don't do the welcome, it's like, oh, why are we learning this? Why are we here, Miss Brown? And I've come to appreciate the welcome, even though I didn't really like it at first. The next one is the launch. How are we launching in students into learning or connecting our prior knowledge to what we're going to be learning today? To be honest, I sometimes have skipped this as well, but I realized that they don't realize what we're doing or how everything connects unless you do the launch. And it's so frustrating to say, but sometimes some things just connect organically or by itself. But I've realized that once I do the launch, it's like, okay, this is the question that I need to be focusing on today. For example, in this next lesson that I'm writing or figuring out how to teach tomorrow, for the launch, it says post the focusing question, which our focusing question is like, how do immigrants respond to challenges in a new country? So that's like our overarching theme for this set of lessons. I read that question to them every day so that they're thinking about it, because for an end of module task, they're gonna have to be able to write it. And if we've been talking about it for like a month or 2 weeks straight, then hopefully they know where to find the answer to that using text-based evidence questions. But specifically for this launch, which is like the second part of the lesson, it says to collect clues, the students generate and place them on a calendar, randomly draw one and read it out loud. Invite students to volunteer names of the characters based on the events given. So for example, in this book, they had a wedding. So which one had a wedding? That would be a good way to draw them in or connect the dots. I probably won't do that because, again, even though the curriculum says to do it, time is of the essence, and sometimes we don't have enough time to do all this. So I try to focus on what is most important. So for the launch, I would ask my students this question: what did you notice was the same as you listened to the clues throughout the story? So basically, this is still activating their prior knowledge as well. Talking about how the blanket or the quilt was very essential in the story, and they can respond the quilt was used for important family events throughout the book. So of course the book is going to give you answers that the students should already be able to come to, but I don't necessarily agree with all of them, especially if the student is on the right track. Students may need problem in getting to the answer, or you can call on a bunch of students. They may not just say the correct answer right off the bat. You may need to prompt them a little bit. And then it says go ahead and tell students that today they'll be learning about how the quilt demonstrates how traditions change over time. So for example, in this book, they kept the quilt for a wedding, and then the grandma used it when she passed away, and then later on the quilt was used to bring a baby, used it as a baby blanket. So it was a bunch of things about tradition and how even though they're from Russia, they still keep their traditions. So the third thing when lesson planning is go ahead and learn. Basically, what are the students learning at this time? Now the learn could be like 55 minutes, and of course we don't have that much time in a day to have students have all that learn time. So it tells me to explain how a tradition changes over time. So we'll talk about that briefly, because to be honest, in the beginning of the year, I struggled with my pacing, trying to get everything in and giving them ample amount of time to do everything. And while I still do that, I realized that I do have to take some pieces out and just focus on the critical ones. So the next part in the learned lesson is going ahead and having the students look at this page in their workbook, and it has all the characters listed out, and trying to pull evidence out of the text in their graphic organizer or a chart, whatever you want to call it, to figure out how does that character convey the central message through their dialogue and things like that. So I'm gonna model that for them. I don't know if you guys have heard of like the gradual release model. It is I do, we do, you do. So you show them how to, which is basically the fourth quarter, we have 15 days left in school. You show them basically how to do it, so what you're looking for, and give them an example, and then they may pick a character, and then you guys do it together as a class, and then you release them to do it on their own, and that could be a grade since you already basically taught it and gave them some assistance. And of course, you can walk around the room and help students that need more help with that. The next part of the lesson is the landing. How do you basically land the plane and tie everything together in a bow, I guess. But some people say the next part is, but I'll let you guys know on that later on. The land is where I like to drive the lesson home, and it brings everything together. So based on the learning outcomes and objectives, the land is where they get to show what they have learned. So we basically talked about how the characters have relayed the central message and what the meaning of the quilt is. And through learning and exploring and looking for evidence about those things, they should now be able to answer this question. I think the central message is blank, because during the discussion, they can call on somebody or shout somebody out, or they can say, no, I think the central message is because during the discussion blank. So giving them sentence starters, and of course, now, especially this point in the school year, they shouldn't need sentence starters, but you just know your students best. And I feel like some of my students do need sentence starters so that they at least have the opportunity to participate. With this, it gives them basically access to the education that they may not have been able to get. Okay, so for the land, I like to make it fun, whether it's on index cards, post-it notes, and then come and put it on the board. Well, however you like to grade them. I know some teachers like to use journals and things like that, but it's a quick check-in to see, okay, the student did get this or the student did not get this. Sometimes I use them for a grade, more like a formative assessment. Sometimes I don't. So it really just depends on what I'm looking for that day. And of course, you can use your teacher discretion to see, okay, these students didn't understand this part of the story. I can even use it for my welcome at the beginning of the next lesson, just to make sure I hit that point home so that they don't miss parts of the story, especially with students being absent. Once you have your land or your exit ticket to check for student understanding, the last thing is the wrap, what my curriculum calls it. I just give out homework or have them give a fluency sheet depending on the skill that we're learning or what the deep dive is. There are a lot of deep dives in this curriculum, and I absolutely love it. Like, I wish I could teach the deep dives, but unfortunately we just don't have that much time in a day, along with teaching the phonics skills and practice skills, markers, all that other stuff. Like, it's only a certain amount of time in a day, and that's why even though teachers just want to give up right now, everybody's just close to the end of the year, I feel like it's only a certain amount of time that we get with our students, so we have to make the best of it. So yeah, that's how I structure my lessons, or that's how I just think about it really quickly in my head. Do they need the skill? Do they not need the skill? Are they meeting all the learning goals and objectives for that specific topic? Because once they get later on to what they're supposed to be doing at the end, like writing an essay about all these books that we're learning in our curriculum, are they able to do that successfully? Of course, I can walk them through the steps, but they still need to be able to know where to find information or what this means, symbolism, or why is the author repeating all these words and what they actually mean to the text. And I love having some really robust discussions. Like, my students have been on it, like especially today was actually a really good day. And I know in my field trip vlog, like, it wasn't such a good day, but I feel like having the weekends to myself, if you haven't checked out how I like to reset and things like that, it was a weekend similar to like that. And I just felt back, I came back and I was cool, calm, and collective. Like, I wasn't on edge and my students could feel that. And then with the lights turned down, it was just a really good day. And I absolutely love my students. I can't believe I only have 15 more days with them, but I'm trying not to think about it because I don't know, they just always say, like, your first group of students that are yours, not student teaching, that are yours, like, they will always have a special place in your heart, and mine really truly do. But I don't want to tell them that just yet. We'll have our end of year celebration later on, so we're gonna look out for that. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a comment down below how you like the lesson plan, or some questions you ask yourself when lesson planning, so you know what's best for your students. Don't forget to create a great day, and I'll see you guys in my next video.